Did you know that one bad spark plug can add up to 30% more fuel use and destroy your catalytic converter? What is a spark plug? Today, I'm going to share 9 symptoms of a bad spark plug. So, what's a spark plug? It's the match for every burn, a tiny igniter that turns coil voltage, often 20,000 to 40,000 volts, into a spark that lights the mix thousands of times per minute. Whether your bike's carbureted or fuel-injected, single or inline-four, doesn't matter. Plugs sit deep in the head, one per cylinder, and fire every power stroke. Let's dive into the 9 telltale signs your plug is dying before it wastes fuel, power, and time. Symptom 9, rough idle. The exhaust note hiccups like a skipped heartbeat. Bars buzz more than normal, and the tach wavers even when your hand is steady. At higher RPM, it may smooth out, tricking you into blaming fuel or air. But at idle, where voltage headroom is lowest, a worn plug is the first thing to check. As a plug ages, the sharp center electrode rounds off and the gap creeps wider. A bigger gap needs more voltage to jump. At idle, the ignition has the least in reserve, so the spark goes thin and misfires show up first. It's like trying to light damp kindling. Sometimes it catches, often it doesn't, and the rhythm never stabilizes. Start simple. Warm the engine. Then pull one plug cap at a time with insulated pliers. The cylinder that changes RPM the least is your suspect. Blow debris out of the well, remove the plug with a proper socket, and measure the gap with a wire gauge. For many bikes, it is around 0.8 millimeters. If the tip is rounded and the gap is out of spec, replace it. Plugs are $8 to $20, cheap piece. But ignore this now, and the next symptom will have you cranking your bike until your thumb gets sore every cold morning. Symptom 8, hard cold starts. Cold mornings turn a small issue into a loud one. You hit the starter, long crank, a cough, maybe a stall. The pipe reeks of raw fuel. It feels like a weak battery, but the real fight is spark strength versus thick, cold fuel. Cold gas doesn't vaporize well. It needs a hot, sharp spark to ignite, and a fouled or wide gap plug just can't deliver. Once a little heat dries the chamber, it seems to fix itself, but it never really does. One time, a guy at a gas station told me his bike wouldn't start at dawn. I told him to pull a plug, ground it, and crank. The spark was dull orange, barely jumping. I showed him what a strong blue-white spark looks like and told him to check a gap. His was wide. He swapped one plug, and the next morning it fired instantly. I told him the math. A starter costs $120 to $300, a battery $60 to $150, but a $10 plug and 5 minutes usually fix it. And once it runs, that leftover fuel doesn't disappear. It burns later in the exhaust, and you'll definitely hear it the moment you roll off the throttle. Symptom 7, small backfires. Roll off from 4,000 RPM and listen. A soft burble is normal. Sharp crackles or small bangs are not. When plugs miss on overrun, unburned fuel reaches the hot pipe and lights there. It sounds spicy until you realize it's your energy burning in the wrong place. Lots of riders blame tuned pipes or rich maps. Start at the plug. A dry, sooty nose is a weak burn signature. Glazed porcelain or peppered specks can mean too hot a heat range or past detonation. Also, check for tiny leaks at exhaust joints that feed afterfire with fresh air. But remember, the upstream misfire often starts inside the cylinder. Do a fast check. Ride to 4,000 RPM. Close the throttle and listen. Consistent sharp pops point to incomplete combustion. Pull the suspect plug and compare it to its neighbors. If one is dirtier or shows heat stress, replace it with the correct heat range and gap. Ignore it and you'll cook muffler packing or blow a baffle. $60 to $300 gone. Fix the spark first so you're not roasting your exhaust. And those little backfires, they're warm-ups for what's next. Flat spots when you roll on the throttle. Symptom 6, flat spots and hesitation under load. Nothing kills confidence faster than a stumble mid-pull. In second or third, the bike feels like it's towing a parachute, then clears up the moment you ease off. Roll back on and it coughs again. That's the giveaway. Under load, cylinder pressure spikes and the spark must jump a tougher gap. A rounded electrode or a gap that's grown wide lets the spark blow out. The coil overheats trying to compensate and misfires pile up. Fuel mapping can fool you here, but if the stumble disappears disappears with a lighter throttle, it's spark, not fuel. Find a safe stretch and test a 2,000 to 6,000 RPM roll-on. If it stutters, pull the plug. Look for a rounded center, eroded ground strap, or a gap well outside spec. Re-gap if the plug is otherwise healthy. Replace if the tip is worn or the insulator stained. Ignore it, and raw fuel cooks your catalytic converter from the inside. $200 to $600 gone. Fresh, gapped plugs bring back that smooth pull and keep temps where they belong. But that heat builds up, and after a ride, it doesn't just vanish. It comes back to haunt you at the next stop. If this video's already helping you figure things out, drop a comment with your bike model and year, and tell me which of these symptoms you've noticed. I read them all, and I'll feature common issues in the next video. So if you've had weird starts or misfires, let's fix them together. Symptom 5. Hot restart fail. You pull in for gas, shut off the bike, and 5 minutes later, it just cranks and cranks. 10 minutes more, it fires like nothing happened. It's not fuel, it's heat. When plugs have tiny cracks or dirty insulators, heat opens paths for the spark to leak outside instead of inside. Hot, it fails. Cool, it works again. Most riders blame vapor lock, but swapping a known good plug proves the truth fast. Recreate it on purpose. Ride 15 to 20 minutes, shut down 5, then crank. If it won't fire, swap a known good plug into the suspect cylinder and try again. If it lights instantly, the old plug is breaking down at temperature. Confirm the heat range is correct. 2 hot plugs glaze or blister. 2 cold plugs foul. Don't keep punishing the starter and battery. Repeated hot cranks shorten brushes and cook plates. Replace the plug, check the boot seal, and retest. The fix costs $8 to $20. The tow and wasted time cost more. Plus, heat that high doesn't just stay inside the cylinder. It creeps up the plug and boot, drying and cracking insulation. That's when the problem becomes visible, literally under the night sky. Symptom 4. Ticking and visible. Arcing at night. One time, a buddy of mine texted me at night. He thought his valves were ticking. I told him not to guess and to kill the lights. Idle the bike and look. He did and sent a shaky clip of tiny blue threads jumping from the boot to the head. Arcing happens when the spark finds an easier external path than the plug gap. Hairline cracks in the ceramic, carbon tracking down a dirty insulator, or a torn boot can all offer a shortcut to ground. I told him to miss the area. Arcing got worse, so he replaced the cracked plug and burned the boot. About $8 to $20 for the plug and $20 to $60 because the lead needed replacing. Every spark you see jumping outside is stealing power from inside, and the next symptom will show you exactly what that's doing to your engine. Symptom 3. Sooty or wet plug. Line the plugs up on a clean rag. A healthy one is light tan or gray. If a single plug stands out, black and fluffy with soot, or wet with fuel, you're looking at a spark problem more than a fuel problem. One odd plug among equals is the giveaway, and you might smell straight gasoline on the wet one. Soot insulates the electrode and makes each future spark harder to form. A wet plug can short across its gap and keep the cylinder dead until replaced. Riders often throw fuel parts at this because the exhaust smells rich. In reality, the mixture is unburned, not over-delivered. Swap in a fresh plug with the correct heat range and book spec gap. Track that cylinder for a few rides. If fouling returns, inspect the boot seal and coil lead for tension and corrosion, and confirm there are no coolant or oil leaks into the chamber. Don't keep riding while it fouls. Raw fuel washes the oil film off the walls and accelerates ring and bore wear. $8 to $20 now beats machine work later, but here's the scary part. The next symptom is invisible, and it's quietly destroying your coil and catalytic converter as we speak. Symptom 2. Out of spec gap or resistor value. A small mistake here can cost big. A neglected spark plug set, about $32 to $80 to replace, can push your coil into early failure, running you $50 to $200, and even overheat your catalytic converter, another $200 to $600 gone. It's the kind of slow damage you never see coming until the bill lands. The trouble usually starts quietly. You feel a stumble under load, maybe a random hiccup at high RPM, or you notice a faint electrical buzz through your speakers. Those are signs the spark is struggling to jump the gap or fight through a worn-out resistor inside the plug. Over time, the plug gap widens as the electrodes wear. The internal resistor, built into many modern plugs to reduce interference, can drift out of range or open completely. Both raise the voltage demand beyond what your coil can reliably deliver, forcing it to work harder and heat up. To confirm, switch the key off, remove a plug, and grab a wire feeler gauge. Most bikes prefer around 0.7 to 0.9 millimeters, but check your manual. Re-gap carefully with a proper tool. Never pry the tip. Then test resistance from the top terminal to the center electrode. Healthy reads 3 coulombs to 10 coulombs. Anything open or extreme means that plug's done. Ignore those numbers long enough and the voltage gap becomes a canyon. The result? No spark at all, just a spinning starter and silence. Symptom 1, won't start. This is the hard stop. The engine cranks enthusiastically, but never fires. Or it runs on fewer cylinders with violent shaking. At this point, the plug may be cracked, the insulator carbon tracked, the electrode worn to a nub, or the internal resistor open. Whatever the path, the spark never forms where and when it should. Prove it in minutes. Insert an inline spark tester between the lead and a new, correctly gapped plug. Crank and watch for a bright, regular flash. If the engine fires on the new plug but not on the old one, the diagnosis is done. Still no spark? Move upstream to the coil and wiring, but start with a plug. They fail more often, cost less, and swap fast. If you're stranded, a tow is $75 to $150. Replace the full set so all cylinders match in age and gap. The payoff is immediate. Idle steadies, cold starts snap, decel pops vanish, and throttle becomes one smooth elastic band from idle to redline. It's shocking how much personality a healthy spark gives back to your engine. So now your bike fires up clean, idles smooth, and sounds alive again. But if you still hear a faint whine, slap, or feel vibration through the pegs, it's not the spark anymore. That's your chain and sprockets talking. Check out our next video about that specifically, and hit like and subscribe so you're ready for the next ride-saving fix.